It's almost amazing to me that Disney is still pumping money into this stagnant IP that almost nobody is interested in anymore. I'm going to ask a serious question, and please leave your comments down below as a response. When is the last time that any of you have checked for or actually watched anything Star Wars related? So I have to ask the question, who in the f*** is Lucasfilm making this for? Well, if you take a little bit of time to look into the making of this show and then watch the trailer, you might get the answers you are looking for. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Let's go, baby. The Acolyte trailer is finally here. We are so back. This kind of looks like it takes place during the prequel era. Feed me some of that sweet nostalgia, Lucasfilm. I'd keep an eye on that kid who's seeing fire when she closes her eyes. Just saying. Oh, Trinity is in this? Girl boss fight? She still got it after all these years. It's not about good or bad, it's about power and who is allowed to use it. Preach, sister. Damn, one Sith against all of those Jedi? This is going to be epic. We will be seated for the Acolyte, and this will be peak Star Wars. So it's been a little while since I've made a video that was Star Wars related. Mostly because I've completely disconnected myself from the franchise at this point. And because of that, I know very little about what is actually going on at Lucasfilm right now. But I have heard mention of this Acolyte show from time to time, and based on what I am hearing, not a lot's changed at Lucasfilm since the last time I was paying attention. According to a few misguided souls, this is the show that is going to save Star Wars.
You serious?
Of course, these are the same people who said the same thing about The Mandalorian, Kenobi, The Book of Boba Fett, and Andor. So needless to say, if anyone is suggesting that this franchise is even capable of being saved at this point, then I can't take those people seriously. Just after the trailer was released, I saw this article pop up on IGN, and it features an interview with the creator of the Star Wars prequel series, Leslie Headland. If you actually read the article, I didn't find anything in it to be all that egregious. She talks about how much of a fan she is and how excited she is to create in this world. Of course, if you take a quick gander at her IMDb, you would be hard-pressed to find a reason why Lucasfilm thought she would be the best fit to shepherd a new Star Wars project. But that's kind of par for the course when talking about the poor decisions that this company makes regularly.
Something very familiar about all this.
One part of this interview that stuck out to me personally is where she talks about how the show will challenge what we know about the Jedi and the Sith. Now this sounds dangerously close to the Rian Johnson ideology of subverting expectations in the worst way possible. Now to be clear, there is a way to subvert expectations in a creative way. But up until this point, it doesn't seem like anyone at Lucasfilm is capable of doing that. But let's dig a little deeper and see if we can't figure out what exactly she means by this, based on the footage we get in this new trailer. I want to send a quick shout out to my good buddy, Good Talk HQ, who brings up how Disney has been constantly changing the world and lore, so we've gotten to the point where we don't really know shit about the Jedi or the Sith. And I actually thought that was a really great point. And yet another example of how Disney Lucasfilm have already taken a somewhat simple good versus evil premise that Star Wars initially was and turned it into a complete shit show. And I think we have Disney Lucasfilm creations like the character of Rey to thank for that kind of confusion. Considering she is all the Jedi, or all the Sith, or anyone she wants to be, or whatever bullshit they were trying to spin with her. But yes, I do agree that the lines between what makes a Sith and a Jedi are now somewhat muddled, thanks to Disney. The other interpretation of this, and this is something that I thought about while watching the trailer, would they go as far as to make the Sith character in this story somewhat sympathetic? Now, some will argue that George Lucas kind of toyed with the idea in the prequels, when he had lines of dialogue about how the Jedi could be perceived as wrong from a certain point of view. But this should be chalked up to nothing more than another manipulation tactic to get Anakin to flip sides.
It's over, Anakin! I have the high ground!
But we all know that in the modern era, Hollywood has a track record for not letting bad guys be bad guys. The sympathetic villain is all the craze right now, and it's one of the worst, most predictable trends in existence. I think it's entirely possible that the main character in this series will get the Kylo Ren treatment and be pushed away or worse by the Jedi, all because she was simply thinking about fire. Disney and Lucasfilm have a history at this point of making the Jedi look irrational and impulsive when it comes to an individual who maybe needs some guidance. And I do think that this show is very much going to tap into that concept. And I have to assume they're going to retroactively use it to explain some of the bad creative decisions made by Disney Star Wars.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Gone are the days where Luke Skywalker was so full of hope that he wanted to help his murderous father redeem himself rather than disowning or even killing him. So I fully expect this Sith-centric story to paint this Sith character in a very different light. Some of you may find this interesting. I find it to be undermining the lore that made us fall in love with this franchise to begin with. As for the rest of the trailer, I felt very similar watching it as I do watching any Disney Star Wars content. It all feels like someone trying to emulate Star Wars rather than actually adapting it. I appreciate the fact that they've shifted back to real sets and using practical effects to bring non-human characters to life, because it all helps this world feel a bit more alive. The issue is that Lucasfilm has a habit of casting people who feel very out of place in this world. And I get the same kind of vibe from this trailer. Even the costumes and the production value look very cheap to me.
I'd buy that for $1.
I guess I can't blame them for trying to reduce costs, but the easiest way to reduce costs would be to not make this show at all. Even the Carrie Ann Moss fight sequence looks like it was ripped out of another movie and randomly dropped into a Star Wars story. The crazy part about all of this is this might have actually been a decent concept for a Star Wars story if it was in the right hands. But unfortunately, I feel like we are just going to end up with yet another show that is Star Wars in name only. And still we'll have people on social media hyping it up as if it's the second coming of The Empire Strikes Back. But we all know the truth because we've been here before 1,000 times. All the Acolyte is really doing is keeping this franchise on life support, but I think I speak for a lot of fans when I say it's time to pull the plug.
Let the past die. Kill it if you have to.
The magic is gone, and I seriously doubt you'll ever be able to recapture it. Especially as long as this franchise is under the control of this creatively bankrupt company. A studio who hires people to create Star Wars stories who have no real knowledge or understanding of what Star Wars actually is.
Y'all be cool. Shut up.